again, and Matt will talk about the topic measuring and benchmarking the mobile ecosystem.
Thank you, and glad to be back here. So one of the area that MEF does is data. So we collect a lot of data in all the different aspects of the mobile ecosystem. And I want to share a sliver of this data, particularly when it comes to Indonesia. We actually, and the Indonesia data is actually quite new. We collected that data this year, but we've been collecting data for about 200 countries for all the different aspects, mobile penetration, IoT, so I'll share with you some of this data, but what I want to say is that, from Indonesia, we would love to share with you, and then we will continue to build this data moving forward, and we'd love to come back next year and share what the trends look like for Indonesia. So you can actually go to the Mobile Ecosystem Forum and MEF Data and get a bit of more information about what exactly we do. We actually have covered mobile IoT, business messaging, SMS, RCS, WhatsApp, Viber, roaming data, roamers, volumes. Like I said, we have over 170,000 data points, about 218 countries, and 700 plus operators. It's essential, and I think what I want to do in this presentation is to set this as a data benchmark, because we will have a number of different panels coming for different topics. I think this data hopefully would become a kind of a starting point for some of that conversation. So the first one I want to talk about is consumer trust. So this is actually a graphical view of what we have collected, and we compare Indonesia with the world average. Interestingly, I think in the sense, because these are all raw data that we kind of put together into a presentable and kind of relatable presentation. There is a lot that we could slice and dice depending on how you want to look at the data. So this is just one part of how we, take the data and present it. So we look, so the data speaks for itself, and sometimes, we have a perception of what it is that we feel about a certain country, what we think, some of the trust, in Indonesia versus the rest of the world, and then the data speaks either, I guess, agree to what our perception is or what we think it is, and then sometimes it doesn't, and so it's kind of very interesting to know, and I think data is key to making, some of our business decisions. So from a consumer trust perspective, I say Indonesia, we compare with the world average. We find that, in general, awareness, control, safeguarding, the Indonesian, at least sample size that we do, feel that, they are, they're very aware of how the data is used. I mean, they're tech savvy. They feel that they have control over the data, and also that there's sufficient safeguard to keep my data out of the hands of fraudsters. Now, again, this is perception. So I think this is what we are trying to understand. How does consumer relate to the trust based on the data, the sample size that we collected? So I would, I think this is something that, I would love to have a conversation with the, Indonesian about how we could take this data moving forward, and how this data could, benefit in terms of some of the decisions that we are making in taking actions and putting tools together to increase and making sure that the consumer trust index in Indonesia stay high. That sometimes, as our keynote speaker said, some of those data breaches may change some of those dynamics. So the trend and the year-to-year collection of the data, will provide us a key understanding of how we move forward and how we make better business decisions. So the other data that I want to share is that this is the usage in general in terms of social media, listening to music, playing games, watching video clips, ordering product, and banking services, sending money to friends, So all the digital engagement, digital services that a public can do. And in general, we see Indonesians are very, very, engage and use a lot of these services, even as compared to the rest of the population. So it is an interesting, and maybe because, so the question that we would love to why? Why is it so? Is it because Indonesian public, is obviously mobile first due to the geography and the distribution. So obviously, mobile engagement is very high. And, how does it relate to education, awareness, trust? And so, but it looks like, at least from what the data that we have collected, the Indonesian public is very, very, savvy in terms of using all the different services that a mobile phone can do, and except for a few exceptions. So again, these are the raw data that we collected, and we kind of try to present it and make some sense out of it, and then hopefully, we could understand and how do we compare this, year to year. So the other data that we also collected is a mobile payment. I know we have a couple of fintech and mobile payment companies in this panel, and again, we see Indonesians are very high in terms of using their phone as for mobile payment. They have added mobile phone bill, and they have used digital wallet. The only thing that we know for sure, but I think that I was talking to some of the panelists, that the credit card and debit card obviously is low. I mean, Indonesians are not interested in, well, maybe not interested, but not, not so much so in terms of putting their credit card or debit card into their phone and using that as a payment method. So wallet and carry billing, for example, is definitely the way that Indonesian public wants to buy and buy services. So I think it's probably confirmed to what we expect, and I think the data, so it's good that we know exactly what we think it is, because we know that's the situation. Move on to the next slide. So this is actually quite interesting, and I think it kind of proves also, like we look at different communication channel, WhatsApp, Instagram, phone call, Facebook, TikTok, email, SMS, RCS, Line, Apple Message, Snapchat, all the different ways that you could do messaging and communication, whether with your friends, family, or with your brands. Brands use a lot of these services to communicate, provide notification to users. So what we have found is that WhatsApp is the most dominant usage. So it's not surprising, so I think it goes well with the penetration of phone, and we do have Meta here in one of the panel that we would love to hear more about what are the innovation and innovative service that we can hear from WhatsApp, because obviously it's becoming a very dominant channel for communication as compared to the other channel. We have SMS, and obviously we will hear about RCS, which is an emerging, possibly replacement of SMS in the future with its multimodal and multimedia interaction. So we will see how all of these communication channel played out, and as RCS is introduced in Indonesia and the rest of the region. But for now, we see WhatsApp is the dominant. We see not just a dominant communication among friends, but also we do know that it's going to be a dominant communication for companies to communicate with their consumers. So yeah, I have a couple of minutes. Yep. So rich mesh. So this is just another layer of the. We take another view of the data, and we want to see how is the public or the sample that we collected use rich messaging when communicating with friends and family. So most a lot of them use it very often. So in general, it's the Indonesian public do embrace rich messaging, beyond just the text, multimedia. So it kind of confirmed what we know. So it's nice to see the data and with the frequency, and we would love to continue to build this data and see how this trends for next year. Okay, so let's go back. So that's pretty much, I think, like I say, in summary, the MEF Data Insight is one of the core surveys that we provide free to our members. We welcome our members to use it. We are building more and more insight and data. We are adding more features and more data into all the different verticals that we do, from trust to enterprise communication to IoT and other verticals that we support within the MEF ecosystem program. So thanks again. That was the end of my presentation. Yep.